Two additional aspects of social structure are statuses and roles. Now, remember what social structure does. Social structure coordinates human activities, it provides opportunities, but it also can deny opportunities or make accessing certain opportunities and resources more difficult. Social structure also provides identities. Well, statuses and roles do all of those things. A status is a human-created position that an individual occupies. A status is a title or a position, basically, that somebody holds. In life, individuals will hold both ascribed statuses and achieve statuses. Ascribed statuses are basically the statuses that someone occupies that individual can't really do anything about. I say that they're a result of pure chance, or a result of biology, or a result of good luck, bad luck, but there's nothing an individual can do about them. An ascribed status is going to be, one ascribed status an individual will take on at birth is going to be their sex. Their sex as male or female. That is a status that the individual has no control or um, they can't do anything about it. If someone is involved in an accident, maybe a car accident or a workplace accident, and they become disabled, well, that status of having a disability, that is an ascribed status. It results from pure chance. The other type of status is what we call an achieved status. Achieved statuses can result from one's choices or one's own efforts. You might also say the result of one's own actions or agency, we might say. An achieved status is going to be something that the individual has some control over. Someone might be an accountant. That is their profession. Whether they love their job or whether they don't like their job, at some point they applied for that job or they accepted that job. They went to school to get the skills for that job. And if they didn't want that job, they could always leave that job. So that is an achieved status. If you are the governor of Texas, that is an achieved status. You ran for governor, you won the election. That is therefore an achieved status. Now, we tend to think of achieved and think of accomplishments or positive things. Achieved, when we talk about status, though, simply relates back to someone's actions or their choices. Being a convicted felon or maybe having the status of a sex offender, that is also an achieved status. I apologize. That is also an achieved status. It's achieved in the sense that someone took actions that led them to be convicted of those crimes. So when we talk about statuses as social structure and why statuses are social structure, therefore, well, these statuses certainly provide opportunities to people. If you are you think about your employment status, you have certain perks related to your job. You might get a certain sense of social prestige, or people will respect you if you have a certain respect and admire you if you have, a certain type of job. Statuses certainly provide or identities to people as well. In fact, most people in Western society anyway, when they ask, "What are you?" or "What do you do?" most individuals will respond with their occupational status. I am a dual credit director. I am a janitor. I am a cook. So statuses do provide identities. They provide opportunities, but they can also take opportunities away. Because of your statuses, you might not be able to do other things that you want to do. Related to statuses, we have roles. Roles are the behaviors that are expected of someone who occupies a status. I want to introduce three concepts here: role conflict, role strain, and role exit. And I'm going to talk about these to kind of exemplify how roles constitute social structure. When we say that roles are social structure, we are saying that, these roles coordinate our human activity. They provide opportunities, but they also deny opportunities. Well, let's see how that works here. Within our different statuses and the roles that follow from those statuses, we often in our lives run into what we call role conflict. Role conflict is where we have two different statuses that kind of butt heads. The responsibilities and obligations and expectations of one status make it difficult for us to fulfill the responsibilities and obligations of another status. If think about your status as a student versus maybe your status as a family member. Well, the roles that are expected of you in those two statuses might make it difficult to accomplish what is expected of you in both statuses. If you're supposed to help maybe your cousin with something, you're supposed to go to someone's, I don't know, first communion or baptism. But if you have a lot of homework, that's those two statuses coming into conflict. We call that role conflict. As you grow older and you take on more statuses in life, you're going to incur more role conflict. Your role as an employee might come into conflict with your role as a parent. Your role as a volunteer might come into conflict with your role as a employee. So as we grow older and we take on more statuses and roles throughout the life course, we see more role conflict, forces us to make difficult decisions and get spread kind of thin. So again, statuses and roles, they provide opportunities, they give us some, nice things in life, but they can also make our lives difficult and deny us some opportunities. Role strain is where we have difficulty meeting the demands of one particular role within one particular status. There might, if you think about your status as a student, there might be times where you have so much work to do, in terms of term papers, studying for final exams, finishing a group project. There might be times in your life where that one particular role gives you so much to do that you're having a hard time managing the demands of that one role, not to mention all the others. Just being a student is difficult enough at that time. So role strain involves conflicting roles within, or difficulty managing, the different roles that are expected of you and the different things you have to do in just one of those statuses. Lastly, I want to talk about the idea of role exit, which means disengagement from a role in order to establish new identity. Basically, role exit is where we leave a role. We decide, the role that comes from one of our statuses, we no longer want it, we're going to step aside. As we grow older, we take on more roles and statuses. Up until, in the United States anyway, I would say, our 60s and our 70s. At that point, people start to engage in role exit. People decide, they want to spend more time with their grandkids. They want to spend more time just being at home. They want to slow down, so to speak. So when people get older, they engage in role exit. But role exit is not reserved simply for people who are retired or near retirement. They're thinking about retirement. Role exit can occur at any stage of life. I had a student a few years ago who decided she was at HTC before she wanted to before she was going to transfer to UT San Antonio. She really wanted to work, to raise money for, being a student at UTSA and having to live out there. So she decided to basically take, I think, 3 extra classes. She took something like 6 or 7 classes in one semester so that she could finish early and give herself, I think, like 5 or 6 months just to work. She wanted to temporarily exit that role of the student in order to devote more time to being an employee in order to make money to go off to UTSA. So, role exit, most common later in life, but from our statuses and roles. stages of a life course. And again, this is an example of aspect of social structure, which is social facts. Grant us a sense of identity. Social facts is a concept that came from shape our activities on a day-to-day basis, provide us opportunities. Social facts, as you see, are collectively imposed ways of thinking, feeling, or behaving that have the remarkable property of existing outside the consciousness of the individual. There's some stuffy language in there, but what this really means is that there are ways of thinking, feeling, and behaving that singular individuals really can't do anything about. Regardless of whether an individual likes something, dislikes something, wants to be a part of something, wants to go against something, they're going to have to deal with it anyway. Social facts are not the creations of the people who experience them. Social facts limit choice and opportunity. Let me give you an example of this. Let's suppose that I am tired of dressing in accordance with the masculine gender role. I want to begin dressing how I want to dress, which might reflect certain dressing patterns that people associate with femininity. I can do that. I'm free to do that. However, people might start looking at me differently. They might say, this Brierton guy, what's up with him? He's cross-dressing now. Is he having an identity crisis? Is he beginning to transition into the role of femininity? Is he confused? This guy's strange. What's up with this guy? Some people might become very judgmental. This guy's a weirdo. This guy's crazy. For over 30 years, he's presented himself as a male. Now he's starting to dress as a female. What's going on with him? Well, these judgments, these attitudes, these kind of questions about my intentions and what's going on in my life, these are an example of social facts, because gender roles, kind of the distinction between masculinity and femininity, that's something that's going to be there and exist within people's minds regardless of what I do. I'm free to dress and present myself however I want to. However, people are always going to think a certain type of way about that. People's ways of thinking about gender exist outside of me. They're not the creation. They're not my creation. People's thoughts about gender are going to be there regardless of what I have to do or what I have to say. That doesn't mean my actions are worthless or meaningless. They might be important to me. I might have an effect on causing subtle changes or small changes in the way people think about this. But those ways of thinking, those older ways of thinking, are still going to be there. Racism, sexism, ageism, these are all, to a large extent, social facts. People, depending on your race, your ethnicity, maybe the language you speak, people are always going to have their thoughts about that and make assumptions about that. Some people might become judgmental about that. Again, these ways of thinking, feeling, and behaving are out there in the world. They are embedded within social structure. These are things we're going to have to deal with throughout our lives. That doesn't mean we give up and don't try to change it. Again, we have agency and our actions matter, but racism, ageism, sexism, stereotypes about gender roles or the languages people speak, all these attitudes and judgments are out there, and these are things we're going to have to deal with throughout our lives. Those are an example of social facts. And again, social facts limit choice and opportunity. We might really want to do something, but we don't want to deal with the backlash. We don't want to deal with all the judgments and social pressures. So social facts, again, one of our defining characteristics, social facts demonstrate this defining characteristic of social structure, which is they limit choice and opportunity. Groups, not something I'm going to spend a lot of time on. Groups are just any number of people with similar norms, values, and expectations who interact with one another on a regular basis. We have primary groups. These are like our family. They exist for emotional and psychological support. Then we have secondary groups. These are formal, impersonal, and exist to serve a specific function. Like our colleagues, that's going to be a secondary group. we interact. We might become friends over time, but our main reason for interacting is to get a job done. In groups are a group we belong to. Out groups are a group we do not. We will talk more about those.